Okay, I think we have most folks that have registered for the webinar today, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, I want to thank everyone for the time today, and we'll be reviewing as part of our webinar series, unlocking your RCM potential and navigating the pros, cons, and overall considerations of potentially outsourcing those services. This is also a really helpful webinar if you're currently outsourcing and you're thinking about bringing your billing in-house. We're going to kind of talk about both sides, and really kind of what it looks like in the considerations, with respect to everything RCM, whether outsourcing or doing that internally. So just a quick on the meet the hosts. My name is Chris Plante. I am our Senior Vice President of CR BillMax. Been kind of overseeing our BillMax division here now for 3 or 4 years. Been with CentralReach, the company, for actually since it's been founded, so for almost about 12 years at this point. But I have been in the ABA field for even another 5 or 6 years prior to that. Have a son on the spectrum, so this is all kind of very, very near and dear to my heart, and probably one of the main reasons why I've been in this field for so long. But I really look forward to kind of going through the presentation with you all today. Megan?
Thanks, Chris. I've been with CR BillMax now for 5 years. The last 2 years, Director of Operations. Before that, in the ABA industry, about another 5 years. So in the ABA industry, about 10 years now. Before that, I've been through all areas of revenue cycle for about 20 years. So lots of experience between the two of us just in this industry, and I'm looking forward to going over today's presentation with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Megan. And again, we do would love to be able to keep this as interactive as possible. We have, of course, too many people on the webinar to be able to kind of open it up and just let folks speak live. But again, please do use the Q&A tool. We would love to hear any questions, even just comments, and there will be a survey at the end as well that you'll be able to leave additional, comments and things like that, which we'll talk about towards the end. But let's get into it. And so our agenda today, we kind of talked about the intro a little bit, but I do have a couple slides that I think you all will find interesting, just with respect to revenue cycle and some metrics that we're seeing. We'll also go through kind of just some of the unique challenges from an RCM perspective. Obviously, the ABA field is pretty unique from a healthcare perspective, so there are certain challenges that we see specific to ABA. So we'll talk through kind of some of those challenges. The overall just navigating, the selection process if you were to go in that route as far as looking at an outsourcing partner, cost benefit analysis. Again, continuing to explore those options. The compliance piece, which is, as we all know, as the payers begin to kind of just squeeze more and more from on providers with respect to auditing, what your notes should look like, all of those kind of things. So we'll talk about a little bit from a compliance. We'll go into a closing and then a little bit of Q&A towards the end. Assuming we have some time, we do have a good amount of information for you to cover, so we're hoping to save some time. But we'll move through certain aspects of the presentation faster than others. But again, use that Q&A tool and we will get everyone's questions answered. All right, so I did want to just start with just a little bit of data, and I've shared this at our CR Unite presentation that I did last fall as well. But just through a survey from the Behavioral Health Business Journal, looked at asking ABA organizations, what are you most struggling with, right? And so those top two are really not surprising at all. Obviously, we know ABA from a staff retention, perspective, that is kind of, staff turnover is kind of always top of mind, pretty much at all times, for the organizations that CR works with, as well as BillMax. But so that is of course that's probably going to be number one for the foreseeable future. But as you can see there, number two, reimbursement and payment challenges, payer challenges, all of those things that kind of come with revenue cycle is essentially second, on folks' mind as far as the biggest challenges from last year. They'll be coming out with this survey again this year in 2024, and my guess is that we're going to probably see those top two remain the same, as we move into 2024. So the next slide, and I'm just going to build this out so that we can, is what we thought was pretty unique and something that we wanted to share with you all. And this is specific to the actual CR customer base, right? And so for those of you who are not aware, I mean, CR is pretty much the by and far leader in the ABA kind of software provider space. And we have somewhere around 2,000 ABA organizations that use our software in a variety of sizes, right? And so basically what this is what we did is we looked at, okay, what is kind of the average from a gross collection rate for our customer base, and then what does it look like for the top tier decile of customers, the ones that are really collecting very well, right? And that's whether they're outsourcing it or they're doing it themselves, right? And so you can see there, we have three different segments that we broke this down into. Organizations that are have revenue over $30 million annually, organizations that are $5 to $30 million annually, and then organizations that are under $5 million. And you can see, the differences as far as the average is kind of that 87, the 91, and the 89. That's kind of where the average sits when we look at our entire customer base in those different segments. Then what we did was we took the top 10%, right, and said, hey, what are those 10% in each of the different segments? Where are they collecting at, right? And then you can start to see, okay, now it's at 97.7, 99, 99.2 compared to the average. And then on the left-hand side, the 5.35, the 1.2 million, that's the actual additional revenue and or cash flow that if you were to take yourself from the average and move up to that top decile, excuse me, and really kind of the additional cash flow that you could see. So it is a really a material dollar amount, and especially in a industry like ABA that has pretty razor thin margins, being able to collect an additional 10% of the dollars that you are owed really becomes kind of a game changer for all of the different investments you may want to make, the clinical services that you can provide, and so on. So we thought that was pretty interesting. Wanted to share some of that data with everyone. So Megan, I'll kick it over to you for some of the overall RCM challenges.
Great. Thanks, Chris. As we all know, the ABA industry is still fairly new. You heard Chris say he's in it just about over 10 years, but more so on the personal side. I've been in the industry 10 years. About myself, therefore, since it is still so fairly new, we see more challenges with our revenue cycle management because providers, organizations, and payers are still navigating some unknowns. This process makes standardization of processes and obtaining payment for services rendered harder because nothing we do is handled the same way by funding sources. As we've reviewed in previous webinars, the credentialing and contracting practices vary, leaving providers and organizations left alone most of the time trying to figure things out, which delays starting services and in turn delays starting the revenue cycle process. When client policies require verification of benefits and authorizations, ABA providers have to jump through hoops, jump over fires to get the correct information. Unlike other specialties where we as ABA providers are forced to call most of the time to complete these steps because portals, online materials do not provide us with enough of the information needed in order to be successful and to make sure that we're getting the correct information, leaving us with needing more information, which can only be provided by a phone call. Although the codes we use are less numerous than other specialties, the use of these codes and other services and how to bill them vary depending on funding source. This leaves us as providers and organizations confused and frustrated with trying to remember all the rules, regulations per payer, per contract. Pair that with the consistent changes leaves most providers with more questions than answers. Applications of funds paid by a funding source or client can be confusing because EOBs are not easy to read all the time. And again, vary depending on the funding source. Not to mention if a claim has multiple lines or claims that are reprocessed, tracking payments, if you're not familiar with claims processing, becomes a nightmare. Without proper application of payments, this can lead to incorrect client invoicing, which leads to upset families. Families who are confused about their benefits are only further confused with all the bills and invoices they receive because ABA services are ongoing. They're frequent. All these documents are constantly coming in. There's no reprieve from all the paper documents, emails regarding payer changes, bills, EOBs, etc. Lastly, if you're looking at claims follow-up because payers like to incorrectly deny claims or underpay claims just because they can. But if a mistake is made during any other part of that process, it can cause incorrect denials or underpayments providers are now forced to correct, which delays payments for services even further. Although these struggles are common across medical billing in general, it's compounded in the ABA field because it's newer and we do not have standards across all payers, which is why it's important to understand where your organization or your business is struggling with this process. And that's why looking at possibly outsourcing could be a resource. Thank you all for participating in that poll. Looks like, as to be expected, most of you are having trouble with the billing, the payment posting, and AR. That's where we typically see most of our organizations on the BillMax side having their consistent struggles, which is why we like to give everybody both sides of the coin when it comes to outsourcing your RCM. Some of the pros, some of the cons, so that you can make an educated decision on your business and what's going to be best for your business. So let's start with the pros. What are some great things about outsourcing your RCM? Outsourcing teams usually compiles a team members based off of their experience in the field. It's always staffing the needs of the organization, so you don't have to worry about who will work on items if someone leaves, if someone's on PTO, who's going to train that new employee. It also supports if there's ever any type of breakdown, right? We know that payers are inconsistent, clearinghouses are inconsistent. An outsourced company and an outsourced partner will ensure during those hard times that claims are still being submitted, even if it's a manual process, to make sure that your revenue is not disrupted. There's no extra out-of-pocket costs for hiring, training, workstations, PTO, benefits, etc. All of that is done by your outsourcing partner. Outsourcing partners like BillMax have standard workflows that are put into place to ensure that any changes in staffing, project, guidelines are streamlined to the entire team to ensure seamless transitions, increasing revenue stability through all of your payers, all of your changes in regulations, state policies, staffing changes on your side. Standard workflows help make sure that that's remains the same and there's no questioning of what's going on in your account. It also helps because an outsourced RCM has a team that keeps track of all the insurance guidelines to provide guidance and a system set up proactively to adjust billing to accommodate those changes, and will help decrease denials and continue revenue stability even through those changes. We know that providers don't always get the right information. Having an RCM outsourcing partner will help make sure that you're ahead of those guidelines. We know that some payers like TRICARE, they update their rates every October. Having an outsourced partner who understands that will make sure that come October 1st, when those new fee schedules are in place, your system is set up and your billed rates are adjusted to make sure you're not leaving any money on the table or there's a need for corrected claims due to incorrect rates. Compliant billing guidance and HIPAA compliant system helps support contract requirements while giving families security and knowing their medical data is kept safe. That's CentralReach, that's Sierra BillMax. We make sure that everything that we're billing out is compliant to not only HIPAA and the state government, but aligns with your specific contracts. You'll have staff dedicated to guiding you through passing audits, as well as setting up best practice to avoid them in the future. We all do everything we can to make sure that we don't hit audits, right? But we do know that organizations and payers We'll do audits every once in a while just to make sure that you're filing compliant claims. Having an outsourcing partner, make sure that that manual process of reviewing the records, mailing the records, getting the records on file is set up and consistent so that you don't have to worry about it. Now, on the other side, what are some cons of outsourcing? By outsourcing your RCM, you put full control of how resources are allocated to working your account in the hands of somebody else, which means if you want certain things work certain days, it's at your outsourcing partner's discretion on whether or not they can comply with that. Also, as an organization, you have less direct oversight and input on when billing occurs and have to trust that the outsourcing team to complete it timely. At BillMax, we have certain BillMax cadences. We have a set date that originally might not align with something that you want. You might be used to billing every day, so it's something that you have to adjust your best practices to. But if you're somebody who wants to keep control of that, that could be a con of outsourcing your RCM. You also have less control over the team hired to work within your account. You're fully trusting the outsourcing team to hire the right team members to work your account. You also have less control over workflows and will have to work within the standard workflow set up by the outsourcing team. Also, costs may vary depending on how much or how little is needed to support your RCM needs. Next, we're going to go over into how to select the right outsourcing partner, what to look for, what to ask. The process of selecting the right outsourcing partner is something that can seem overwhelming because of all of the options out there. Once you've made the decision to outsource either part or all of your RCM, you need to know what to look for. First things first, you want to make sure that the companies you are looking into have expert experience in the field and the platform you are currently using. As we discussed a little earlier, ABA is still new. It's still nuanced. You want to make sure that the outsourcing companies you're looking at are experts in the field of ABA, not just medical billing, because ABA does have those nuances. You also want to make sure that the partner and the companies that you're looking at have success with revenue cycle management for an extended period of time. It's one thing to state that they have experience and have an 80% collection, but are those data points 80% collections over a year, 80% collection over 2 years, or have they been successful with ongoing organizations for 5+ years? You also want to look into an organization that is transparent with you and how they're handling items going on in your organization. BillMax, we use CentralReach all of the time. You can see everything that is being handled on your account within the lines, which means you can see the actions taken when a bill was sent out, when a claim was processed, when it was paid, what it was denied for. There's no hiding it. We're going to be open and honest with you with what's going on. You want to make sure that any outsourcing partner you're looking into provides that same transparency so that you understand what is going on with your account and your clients at all times. You also want to make sure that you are a partner with the company and that you're aware of what's going on. The good, the bad, the ugly. Without the transparent partnership, you cannot make decisions on running your business. Once you've narrowed your choices down, you want to ask the right questions. What does the contracting process look like? What's the time frame? How long does it take for you to take over the account? How long is it going to take you to send out the first initial claims? When will you start posting my account? When will you start working the AR on my account? You want to ask everything, how everything will be communicated. Is it via phone calls? Is it via emails? Is it via system notes? Is it a combination of all of them? You also want to ask upfront, what am I as the business owner responsible for? Am I responsible for providing you with contracts, contacts at payers, fee schedules? What am I going to be responsible for from an administrative side for us both to be successful in this partnership? You also want to ask, what is the outsourcing team responsible for? You want to make sure that you understand both sides of the partnership. You'll also want to ask, what are the workflows and how do I track if they are being followed? You also want to ask, when is my account being billed? How frequently are items being posted? And how frequently are you working the AR within my account? Also, what tools will you provide so I understand the health of my RCM? And how often are those numbers reviewed? How am I billed for my services? Do I get billed monthly? Is it bi-monthly? Is it weekly? Is it based off of a claim volume, a percentage, etc.? Do you have another provider that can provide a reference to your success? You are putting your RCM and the health of your business in the hands of a partner. It's not uncommon for you to ask to speak to somebody or another organization who uses the services to give a reference and to provide examples of how they've been successful with that same partner. After you've gotten all those questions asked, you also want to bring up and ask any questions or concerns, examples that you might have. For example, you might turn around and say, I've never been able to get my United claims to pay correctly. Do you have any success in issues like that? Do you have any success with that payer? Bring specifics so you understand exactly what's going on and how they can provide resources to help you be more successful. After you've gotten all your questions answered, you want to go into what the expectations are. And after you've understand all of those sides of the coin is when you can help yourself make a better decision based off of those answers.
Excellent. Thank you, Megan. Um, and so obviously that gets into kind of all the different things that you may want to look at kind of when exploring and or just talking with a few different potential partners. Some of the other things to look at is really just around the overall cost benefit analysis as well, right? So Megan got into a little bit of this, so I'll move relatively quickly, but there's a lot of different areas to consider. We're just listing kind of some of the main ones here, but there's obviously more than just this. But when you're looking at, hey, whether I continue to do it in-house, or should I bring it in-house, or should I outsource, all these different things, some of the different things are around initial cost, right? What does it look like if you were to have an ongoing internal team, right? You have things like your overhead costs, software, hardware, just even rent, right? Every time you have an employee, there's some type of allocation that goes to that employee. Um, on the outsource side, there's potential that there's, startup costs, different things like that, right? A lot of times most partners are only going to charge you kind of a percentage as you move forward, but there are, some outsource partners out there that may have a setup cost. Obviously, from a labor perspective, you're in-house, you're looking at your salaries, your benefits, your ongoing. I think one of the things, that kind of can sometimes get lost when you're doing it internally is just the hiring, the training, and the retaining of ongoing, especially for a growing organization, right? When do I add another biller? When do I need to add another manager, or a specific, let's say, AR man, different things like that. Those are all costs that kind of ultimately you might not see at every payroll, but as you look at it over a longer period of time, costs that can go into it. Obviously, on the outsourcing side, you are going to pay a percent of collections. That is nice in the sense that, hey, you're not going to normally pay that your vendor until you get paid, but you are indeed paying a percent of collections as you go. A lot of partners will have some type of tiered system, so as your collections go up, your percentage can go down. So that is certainly something you would want to explore with anyone you're talking to. The scalability piece, obviously, we talked about the hiring retention. I think on the and Megan mentioned this on the outsourcing side. Obviously, the scalability piece is really going to be the responsibility of your partner, right? They should be looking at your volumes on an ongoing basis and adding resources. And then, of course, the flexibility and control, right? What is that actually worth to you, right? To have additional control. But, to Megan's point, you really want to be able to find a partner that you can still have part of the control, but really more the visibility. Right, that is mostly what we find are with folks that are using BillMax. Really, as long as they have the visibility into what is happening, the control piece isn't as important. But that's obviously something that you kind of need to decide on your end. This, I'll be really quick, and I think there was a question out there. Can we get access to this? We can certainly send over this slide deck to anyone that's on the call that may be interested. But we will also have a recording of this as well, so you'll be able to go back and reference this. But this was a customer that actually came on recently with BillMax, but this could be any really outsourcing partner, and this goes back to kind of one of my original slides that looked at. the kind of average type collections versus, hey, if that were 10% higher, and you can really see kind of what that increased cash flow could look like, even after the cost of your outsourcing partner, can really be material if you're able to go from, let's say, the mid 80s to the mid 90s from a collections perspective. So Megan, I'll kick it over to you for the types of RCM services.
Awesome. So as you're navigating, making these decisions, as we said earlier, there are plenty of options out there. So just to go over real quick what some of those are. Full service means that they're basically taking you throughout the entire process. They will help with contracting, credentialing, billing, AR payment posting, client collections, everything related to the RCM of your business. And then you have the ones that are accounts receivable. That's where BillMax falls. They will help you with billing, payment posting, accounts receivable, client collections, meaning your copays, deductibles, coinsurances, authorizations, and verification of benefits. You also have the consulting portion, which means they're just basically coming on board, giving you some tidbits here and there, some advice on some very specific problems for a short period of time. They're not going to be with you long term. If you need them again, you pay for them later on. Revenue cycle only is just billing, payment posting, and client collections, along with AR. They do not help out with any contracting or credentialing. They just basically handle claim start to claim end. Again, so many options out there. It's going to be up to you on making sure that you determine what's going to be best for your organization and go forward with what's going to be the best option for you.
Thank you, Megan.
Sure. And next, we're going to go over compliance. As we know in the medical field, ABA is also the same. You want to make sure that everything is handled compliance with your billing, your AR, your collections, medical records. From a compliance standpoint, when you're outsourcing, you want to remember that it's both parties that are responsible for this. It is responsible for your RCM partner to understand who's the whats and the whens. You hired them for help and assistance, and they need to be part of that compliance guidelines, rules, and regulations. They're there to help you understand how it impacts your business and how to make it better if they identify areas of improvement. They also need to understand what to look for when it comes to compliance, how to fix it, and how to make sure it does not happen again. What are they doing to help you navigate your questions and any changes that are occurring? It is part of their job to understand the business as much, if not more, than you, so they can guide you in having a healthy cash flow. When are they looking into these things? How often are they addressing them? We know that the field is always changing, and therefore your outsourcing company needs to understand when these changes are occurring, communicating them with you, and assisting you with adjusting your practices to accommodate those changes. Compliance is not just a one-man band. Everyone in your organization is responsible to ensure you are running your business with the proper laws, guidelines, and your outsourcing partner is part of that. They should be there to help navigate compliance throughout the partnership.
All right. Well, thank you again, Megan. And so we'll jump into kind of some of the data and metrics to evaluate. I know we are running a little over time, so I'm going to move pretty quickly through this. I think some of the things to look at, when you're either looking at your own business and or if you are talking to a potential partner, that some of the information you may want to get from them, is, hey, what are some of the KPIs that they look at, right? And so some of the most important things are around gross collection rates, right? And not just getting to, as you can see, a high collection rate, but really how quickly as well, right? And so you may want to ask things like, hey, what is your gross collection rate at the 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, 12-month mark? Those are all kind of important milestones from a collections perspective. Along with kind of just what is the overall percent of receivables, right? And so this could be, it kind of ties into what you might have heard of like a day sales outstanding. It's really just, hey, how quickly are you actually collecting the money for me, right? And those are really the two of the most important metrics to look at. What is the overall collection rate, and how quickly are you getting to that rate? Right. And then this is also, just something to think about whether you're, looking at your own performances. Hey, what does my week over week trends look like? Am I seeing, collections on a consistent basis? This is actually something I took from a BillMax customer from our ABI tool within CR. Really allows for some good kind of data tracking. But so those are some kind of just some quick metrics to look at. As we start to wrap up, obviously, most of the folks on this call are CentralReach customers, which we very much appreciate, and we want to thank you kind of, for the partnership there. Of course, that software is a tool that BillMax uses to do our jobs day in and day out, and really allow us to give a lot of that visibility into that. And as far as on the BillMax side, Megan talked about it a little bit, but we do offer a range of services. We really try to hone in on kind of the revenue cycle aspect of the workflows, and allow you to kind of focus on kind of your operational side. But really, as you look at a potential partner, or potentially bringing it back in house, hopefully what we went through today will help you kind of as at least a starting point. We are here to continue to answer questions. I know, again, like I said, we have run over a little bit. So apologies for that, but hopefully you all got some good information out of this. Again, there will be a recording of the webinar today. We'll also be able to send out the slide deck, and we'll stick around for any questions that you may have that you can put into the Q&A tool. We'll still be here for another few minutes so that we can answer those. But what I would, if you could, as you start to sign off, you will get a quick pop-up. I think it's 3 or 4 questions long of a survey, just a way for us to kind of use it as a tool to improve for future webinars as we kind of continue this series. We do have more that will come up throughout the spring and summer, and we look forward to working with you there. But yeah, if you all wouldn't mind taking 10 seconds to answer that survey, we would greatly appreciate it. And we really appreciate everyone's time today, and look forward to the upcoming webinars.